Janami dharmyam nachame pravrittihi janami adharmam nachame nivrittihi tvaya rishikesha hridhi sthitina yatha niyuktosmi tatha karomi. Lord, I know what virtue is, but I cannot practice it. I know what vice is, but I have no power to desist from it. Thou, O Lord of the senses, dwellest in my heart, and I do as thou dost impel me to do. Om Shanti, 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 peace, 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 be unto all. This morning our subject is God's will. God's will. Last few months, the whole world is in turmoil with COVID-19 pandemic. This corona has no karuna. Karuna means compassion, grace. Several hundreds of thousands of people died all over the world from this pandemic. In our order also, more than half a dozen monks also died. The world economy also is very shaky. Airline industry, tourist industry, sports industry, entertainment industry, hotel industry, all are in great difficulties. Millions of people lost jobs. Some are homeless. Some have no food. This terrible pandemic created a havoc in this whole world. Now the question arises, who is responsible for this? Some people are raising questions. Where is God? We are His children, we are suffering. He is not doing anything. Where is the compassionate God? Some people are losing faith in God, and some people are thinking that it is the will of God. Sometimes we do not know what is good and what is evil. According to Vedanta, good and evil are the same energy moving to opposite directions. When it is high tide, we call it good. When it is low tide, we call it as bad, evil. Same water current. In human beings we find, if your energy moves towards good, you will be good. If your energy moves towards bad, you will be bad. We are responsible. We want our lives should be always good, no evil. We will never sick, we shall never die. will be always healthy. Anything wrong happens, we blame someone else. If we do not get any human beings around us, we blame God. And God has to listen all these complaints and curses from His children. Most people do not know or try to understand the law of life, the law of karma, and the law of nature. Which is the law of life? Happiness and misery come from our karma, and they rotate in a cyclic order. Chakravat parivartanti dukhani cha sukhani cha. In a cyclic order, happiness, misery, happiness, misery, happiness, misery. We do not find anybody in this world is always happy or always miserable. That is the law of life. Swamiji gave a very beautiful example. The pendulum of the clock must swing, tick-tock, tick-tock. When the pendulum goes to the happiness side, we try to hold it, but it will push us the other side. Happiness and misery are the obverse and the reverse of the same coin. So what is our goal? We must stop the pendulum. We must transcend both. That is God. That is Brahman, beyond the pairs of opposites. That is the law of life. What is the law of karma? As you sow, so you reap. That is the law of karma. Nothing comes to us which we do not deserve. Karma. I am a great believer of the law of karma. Some people do bad karma, but they want good result. It doesn't work that way. Every karma will bear result. Every thought will bear result. That is the way Swamiji defined character. Whatever we do, whatever we think, they leave some impressions in the mind. Those impressions form the habit. And the sum total of those habits forms character. So human beings are the architects of their own fates. That is the law of karma. You can make yourself like an animal, brute. You can make yourself human, loving, compassionate. You can make yourself like a divine being, God. Everything is possible in this human plane. That is the reason this world is called karma bhumi, field of action. Whatever change you want to make in your life here. Heaven is bhoga bhumi. That is the place for enjoyment. That is the reason human life is very precious. Liberation is possible only from this human life. That is the law of karma. There is a song, I think it is Ram Prasad. Doshkaro nai go ma shama, ame shakato sholile jube mori shama. No one to blame, mother. It is, I am drowned in the well which was dug by me. It is all our happiness, our misery, our own karma. We should not blame to anybody. What is the law of nature? If you destroy nature, nature will destroy you. I remember in early 70s when I was in Los Angeles. After 3 o'clock, there is so much smog. If you go out, your eye, there will be so much eye irritation. Tears will come from the eyes. Who is responsible? Our millions of cars releasing the exhaust. There is breathing difficulty. So we should not blame that who is creating the same thing, this world, this global heat is proved by the scientists. We are releasing so much carbon in the air, and they are melting the Arctic region. That snow was melting, and the ocean is going up. Many countries will be underwater. These are all scientific truths. We'll have to take precaution. That's all. Nature. Now the question arises, who is the creator of this universe and all beings? It is God. The Vedic rishis, they, in the very dawn of civilization, they saw the sun, the moon, the vast universe, the mountains, the trees, the ocean. And they raised the question, who is the creator? The logic says, there is, every creation must have a creator. This chair, there is a creator of this chair. This house, there is a creator of this house. This body, there is a creator of this body. So, behind this creation, there must be a creator. People do not want to believe God, that is fine. But who is the creator? Who creates the air? Who creates the water? Who creates the earth? Who creates the space? Who creates? We do not create water, air. And if we do not drink water, we will die. If we do not breathe 5 minutes, we will die. So all these elements, as according to Vedanta philosophy, is created by God. Some people say, oh well, no, it is all nature, by nature, it is the nature. That is not the explanation. Nature is matter, nature cannot create. Behind nature, there is conscious principle. Of course, the nature is the Shakti, power of Brahman. That consciousness behind is responsible for this creation. We call it Shagun Brahman, Ishvara, God. That is Vedanta philosophy. So God is called Srishti Sthiti Palayo Karta, creator, preserver, destroyer of the universe. Karma Phala Data, dispenser of the result of action. And this world is his Lila Bhumi, is filled of his divine play. And all these human beings are his playmates. God is playing with us. It's amazing. We are God's playmates and we are miserable. We are suffering. What kind of God is this? That is his play. Through Abhidya Maya, Maya has two sides, good and bad, good and evil. Through Abhidya Maya, he binds, and through Vidya Maya, he releases. What do you want? Do you want bondage? God will say, have bondage. Well, no, I want liberation. Have liberation. He can give anything you want. But we are so deluded by Maya. We love bondage. We do not want God, we do not want freedom. We love bondage. You know, last night I was very impressed reading a letter of a saintly person. He said, the planet, this earth, the power of gravitation is more than other planets. If there are 82 pounds heaviness in the earth, in the moon, only 2 pounds. Amazing. Perhaps you have noticed when the people landed on the moon, they are just like flying. They have no body weight. Because power of gravitation is very, very little there. But in the earth, tremendous power, heaviness. It is a scientific truth. Similarly, in this world, we find burden, responsibility, family responsibility, ashram responsibility. We find so much heaviness on our shoulders. How can we lighten this heaviness? That is the question. It is a beautiful letter I read last night. How can I lighten this heaviness of my life? Spiritual life. We lighten it. We cut your attachment. It is the attachment which pulls us down like an octopus. We cut the attachment. Sangha Shastrena Dridena Chitta. Read the 15th chapter of the Gita. Krishna says, cut this attachment by the powerful sword of renunciation. Then you will find your light. Your mind balloon will go up. That is called the spiritual life. The moment you feel you have no responsibility, no duty, nothing, your mind will soar high. It is the attachment which brings us earthbound. Very interesting. Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospel gave a beautiful illustration. That granny, the hide and seek game. The granny wants that the children should run and play. Some try to come back to the granny. The moment you charge granny, play stops. So granny says, she pushes, go, play. When we are exhausted, we are disgusted, we go to the granny and say, we do not want to play anymore. We want to be with you. We want to be with you. Then play stops. We must have variety in this creation. Good man, bad man, ferocious animal, mild animals. We want a lion, tiger, we want sheep, cows. Really, this world is a mixture of both good and evil. If everybody is healthy, no disease, then there will be no doctor, no hospital, no pharmaceutical business. Just think of that. The whole world would be full of nursing homes, old people. We need to be recycled, that is all. Now God's will. Sri Ramakrishna told a parable, Ramer Icha. Everything is the will of Rama. It is a beautiful parable. There was a pious weaver in a village. People knew that he was very honest. When they would come to buy cloth from him, he said, the price of this yarn is 1 rupee. My labor, 4 annas. my profit 2 annas. So the price of the cloth is 1 rupee 6 annas. And the villagers would buy that cloth without questioning or bargaining from the weaver. They knew that he was honest. So one day he was meditating on the veranda of his shrine, and some robbers were going for robbing, and they asked this man, forced this man to go with them so that he can carry their stolen goods. So the robber robbed and put the stolen goods on his head, on the weaver's head, and left. Meanwhile, the police chased them. And the robbers ran away, but the weaver was caught. He was taken to the jail, in the prison. The next day he was taken to the judge for judgment. All villagers came, oh no, he cannot do the job, he is honest, he is very spiritual. Then the judge asked the weaver, tell me the truth. By the will of Rama, I was meditating after dinner. By the will of Rama, a band of robbers grabbed me. By the will of Rama, they robbed. By the will of Rama, they put their stolen goods on me. Then, by the will of Rama, the police chased. By the will of Rama, the robbers ran away. By the will of Rama, I was caught and taken to the prison. By the will of Rama, now I am brought in front of you, O honor. The judge understood that this man was really honest. So he released him. Then he said, by the will of Rama, now I am released. This is the parable Sri Ramakrishna said. Will of Rama, will of God. The person whose mind is united with God, only he can understand the will of God. I remember one of our Swamis, Ram Maharaj in Almora, he practiced this will of Rama in his life. So once he was going with some of his friends to Kedarnath, Badrinath for pilgrimage. On the way he became sick. And he told the friends, you go. It is the will of Rama that I cannot go with you. You please go. For me, I do not want to detain your journey. Then another story I remember, Swami Turiyananda one day was drinking some hot milk at night, and the milk was so hot that it burned his mouth and the tongue. He was scolded his attendant. Then he asked this Ram Maharaj, Ram, you practice the will of Rama. Could you tell me that mouth burnt and the tongue burnt, is it the will of Rama? Yes, Maharaj. Oof, your will of Rama is killing me and you are thinking that it is the will of Rama. Very funny way he said. Another story I heard about this Ram Maharaj in Almora. Bushi Sen and his wife Gertrude Emerson Sen, she is an American. And Bushi Sen was a scientist, a great devotee of Thakur Mahaswamiji. One Christian missionary came to visit Mrs. Sen, and Ram Maharaj was there. So Ram Maharaj asked this question to that missionary, Father, is it the will of God that all people in this world should be Christian? Oh, of course, yes. Father, may I be frank with you? You have no faith in God. What do you mean? Christ was God, and if His will cannot be otherwise. It is you, missionary people, want to convert us. That is a beautiful answer he gave. Sri Ramakrishna said, without the will of God, even the leaf of a tree cannot move. One day, Swami Madhavananda was holding the grill, he was the General Secretary, holding the grill of the eastern window, watching minutely outside. And a young monk was standing behind him, and he came for a question, for a business. After 15-20 minutes, the Swami turned back and saw him and said, "How long have you been here?" "Well, I am here 15-20 minutes. Maharaj, I have a simple question. Could you ask me what you are watching?" "Well, I was watching the leaf of the coconut tree, the wind from the Ganges blowing, and in whatever direction it goes, the leaf goes that direction. So I was thinking, if I could be like that leaf, that in whatever direction God moves me, I shall move." That is a great lesson. That's a great lesson. Sometimes we see unrighteous people are wealthy, they have prosperity, whereas righteous people are poor. Where is the justice of God? Well, money cannot make a person happy. I knew a very rich woman in Los Angeles. She told me, "Swami, if money could make a person happy, I am the happiest person in this world." Her husband died from leukemia in 1981, and she died from cancer in 1989. All her wealth went to her stepchildren. Some people make money in an unfair way, and Sri Ramakrishna says that money goes to the doctors, lawyers, robbers, and the spoiled children. We get lessons from the Ramayana about God's will and the Mahabharata. Ravana was a great villain, demon. So Rama was asked, "Why don't you kill the Ravana?" Rama says, "The time has not yet come. There is a time factor. I'll have to wait." When Rama was banished, Sita was kidnapped, and by Ravana, and then Rama killed Ravana. You see, always remember, God is a great forgiver. He forgives 99 times. When 100 times comes, he takes action. We make mistakes, many mistakes. But God forgives. We know in the Bible, when Peter asked, "How many times shall we forgive?" Jesus answered, no, he asked 7 times. Jesus answered, I do not say to you 7 times, but 70 times to 7. That means 490 times. Means innumerable times you must forgive. Beautiful. In the Mahabharata we find Pandavas are virtuous, righteous people. Kauravas are unrighteous. It is a war between the righteousness and unrighteousness, the Mahabharata war. But we see the Pandavas are righteous, they have no end of suffering. When Bhishma, after the war, when Bhishma was crying, Pandavas asked, Grandfather, why are you crying? Well, I see God, Krishna is always with you and you have no endless, you have endless suffering. But God is always with you. This is a beautiful way to see this world. When Draupadi was persecuted in the court of the Kauravas, they tried to undress her. She asked her husbands to protect her, but nobody came forward. Then she prayed to Krishna. Krishna appeared unseen, and he supplied the cloth, so they could not remove her cloth from her body. Later on, Draupadi asked Krishna, why did they try to persecute me? Is it your will? Krishna smiled and said, it is my will that you will be persecuted and tortured in front of everybody. That is the way their sin will culminate. In the culmination of the sin, then I shall take action. As I say, the 100% sin should be complete, then God will take action. And the whole Kuru dynasty was destroyed. But there is dharma, there is victory. That is the message of the Mahabharata. Sometimes we think, we get so much worries and anxieties. Most people suffer from that. Whatever will happen, that will not happen. That will happen. What will not happen, that will not happen. What will happen, that will happen. What will not happen, that will not happen. If you have this knowledge of Vedanta, then worries and anxieties will not be able to perturb you. This world belongs to God. He is managing in His own way. We pray, our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth as it is heaven. Thy will be done, we don't like to admit it. We think, Lord, my will be done. It does not work that way. Whatever comes to our lives, accept it as God's will. We watched Christ's divine play. Most of His disciples are devoted to Him. But it was Judas Iscariot betrayed Him. As a result, He was crucified and then He was resurrected. Evil. It is God's will. Christ Himself, it is a divine drama. Christ Himself wanted He would be crucified. He would be, and then He would resurrect. It is all God's will. Behind this evil, there is so much good. Christ sacrificed His life. As a result, look, the Christianity. Millions and millions of people all over the world are following the teachings of Jesus. It is all God's will. If Christ would die from heart attack or cancer, no, it would not work. Christianity would not work that way. Krishna was assassinated, Ramakrishna had cancer. These are all God's will. God has His own plan for each one of us. Krishna says in the Gita, Ishara sarva bhutanam riddeshe arjuna tishtati brahman sarva bhutani jantra rudhani mayaya. The Lord dwells in the hearts of all beings. He turns them round and round upon the wheels of His Maya. We are like puppets. Many of you have seen merry-go-round. The children sit on different animals or, lion, tiger, horses. And the operator turns them around, turns them that wheel, and they move, they come up and down, and they rotate. When the rotation is over, the operator releases them. In this way, batch after batch are rotating on that wheel of that merry-go-round. So in this world also, we are just puppets moving around. As Sri Ramakrishna said, the fire is below. That is the reason eggplant and potato jump. If you turn off the flame, they will collapse. So all of our jumping and ego and fighting, all these things, because of that consciousness behind. God's will. In the Devi Shuktam of the Chonji, we find a beautiful mantra. Yam yam kamaye tam tam ugram krinomi. Tam brahmanam tam rishim tam sumedham. Devi, the Divine Mother says, whomever I want to be great, I make them great. I make Brahma, I make Rishi, I make all the brilliant people in this world, which is all God's creation, His will. Whom He wants, He will may arrive. Tam ebbo loke bhuini nishati tam sadhu karma karayati sadhu chintayati. Which is in Maitreya Upanishad. He says, whom God wants to take upward, He will force that person to do good action, to think good thoughts. It is all His will. Our problem is the ego. As long as we have raw ego, we shall never understand God's will or divine plan. When our will is or desire is not fulfilled, we grumble, we suffer, we become angry. I shall mention two householder disciples of Sri Ramakrishna who really understood God's will. One is Nag Mahasaya, Saint Durga Charan Nag. Sri Ramakrishna told about him that this man has no ego. He wanted to be a monk. Sri Ramakrishna said, no, you be a householder. And you be an exemplar, a role model for the householders. And he was. I remember when I was a student, when I read his life, I marveled. It is unthinkable. Please read his life. It is in, I think, They Lived with God in that book. I wrote it in a brief way, but he has a big book by Sharat Chandra Chakravarti. Anyhow, he had colic pains coming from the market. On the street he was collapsing and he was telling, blessed is my colic pain, it reminds me God. Once he was lying down, a cat jumped on his face and crushed his retina. And his wife was crying, thinking that he would be blind. He said, no, it is God's will. Don't do anything. Once he went to take bath in the pond, a snake bit him. And he said, oh, it will be all right. It is God's will. That snake bit me. Amazing person. I have never read such thing in my life, in Nag Mahasaya's life. Next is Girish Chandra Ghosh. He was a Bohemian devotee, great actor, dramatist, playwright. He told Sri Ramakrishna, I am a sinner. The place I stand 7 feet deep becomes impure. And I drank so much wine that if you put the bottle, it will touch the Himalayas. That man was changed. God's will. You see, God can make a sinner saint, a saint sinner. It is all in His hand. He came to Sri Ramakrishna, sir, what shall I do? Do whatever you are doing. You are acting, writing play. That way you can help many people. Go ahead. Sir, please help me. তুমি সকাল সন্ধ্যায় ভগবানের নাম করবে। In the morning and evening, chant God's name. He kept quiet, morning and evening. I come back from theater at 3 o'clock, there is no morning for me, and evening I go to the theater. Not possible. He kept quiet. Then Sri Ramakrishna says, before food and before you go to bed, chant God's name. Food. There is no time when I eat food, and there is no particular time when I go to sleep. My whole life routine is a mess, chaos. He kept quiet. Then Sri Ramakrishna said, oh, you cannot do anything. Then give me the power of attorney. I shall do everything for you. As you know, power of attorney, the person who is the executor of the will, he does everything for that, that child who is not underage. So give me the power of attorney, I shall do. He was thinking of how wonderful it is. I will not have to do anything, Sri Ramakrishna will do everything for me. In the beginning he understood that. Later on he realized, my goodness, even I cannot breathe in my own will. It is God's will. One day he was telling, I am going to do this. Sri Ramakrishna said, my goodness, you should not just speak that way. It is God he is going to do to you, through you. Sri Ramakrishna wanted to prove that he is the savior. He is the rescuer, redeemer of the sin through Girish. Then, later on, Girish used to say to the devotees, it is easy to love, it is easy to worship, it is easy to obey God, Sri Ramakrishna. But it is very difficult, extremely difficult to forget him. I cannot function. Day and night he is in my mind, as if he has possessed me. That is called realization of God's will. Again the question comes, do we have any free will? It is on 14th December 1882. Somebody asked Sri Ramakrishna. He said, God is doing everything. If you have this knowledge, you are Jivan Mukta. You are a living free. Even the leaves of the trees cannot function cannot move without God's will. Then he told about his guru. He, Totapuri, the Vedanta monk, Nwara Brahman, taught Sri Ramakrishna Vedanta. He would not believe God's will. He do not believe in personal God, non-dual Brahman. He did not care for Brahma's Shakti, Maya power, the Divine Mother. So he tried to commit suicide jumping into the river, Ganges. But he did not get sufficient water to be drowned. He came to Sri Ramakrishna. And Sri Ramakrishna took him to the Kali temple, and he understood the power of the Shakti, of the Divine Mother, God's will. It is God's will. 11 months he stayed in Dakshineshwar. Amazing. Then Sri Ramakrishna sang that song, Shakali tumar ichha ichha moi tara tumi, tumar karma tumi karma, loke bare komri kori ami. Ami jantra tumi jantri, আমি ঘর তুমি ঘরণী, আমি রথ তুমি রথি, যেমন চালাও তেমনি চলি. O mother, all this done after thine own sweet will, thou art in truth self-willed. Mother, I am the instrument, you are the operator. I am the house, you are the indweller. I am the chariot, you are the charioteer. In whatever direction you drive me, I go to that direction. Sri Ramakrishna sang this song in many places in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. If somebody says, I am doing sinful action, it is also God's will. If you really understood what is God's will, it is not possible for you to do any sinful action. You are a hypocrite. That is the reason you try to blame God for your bad action and bad result. It is your ego. But God gave some free will to human beings, otherwise they would do more sinful acts. Oh, I shall not do it. I shall not do it. It is sin. That free will, some are there in human beings. From the absolute standpoint, God is doing everything. In relative standpoint, we have some free will. Vedanta explains these things in a very beautiful way. Kortum, akortum, annathava kortum. I can do, I may not do, or I can do something else. Example, here is a cow tied with a tether. That cow can eat the grass, the whole area, or the cow can eat the part of the grass and lie down, and the cow may not eat the grass at all. The cow has three choices. So if the farmer sees that the cow did not eat the entire grass, he will not shift the cow to the other place. He will keep the cow there. Kurtum, akurtum, annathava kurtum. That is in human hands. Always remember. God gave us brain, God gave us hands and strength to do action. So you may do, you may not do, you may be lazy, idle life, or you may do something else. You are responsible. That's freedom we have. Always remember. The younger Naren asked Sri Ramakrishna, do we have any free will? Sri Ramakrishna asked, first search who are you, who am I? Searching the ego. Later on you will find there is no I, you. That I comes from that you, that God. You came from God. This play of God is inscrutable. It is not easy to understand. We plan. God's plan. God's will. Once Narada went to Krishna and said, Lord, I found a wonderful devotee who thinks of you all the time. She has a cow and she gives milk and serves people. Krishna said, I want to see my devotee. Let us go. Both came in disguise. The old poor woman gave milk to Krishna and served him. And Krishna and Narada came out from her home, and Krishna says, Narada, do you know, wherever I go, I give a boon to that person. So I must give a boon to this woman. Let her cow die. Narada was puzzled. What is the matter? This poor woman has only one cow. Then both went to a rich man's house and asked some food. They said, it is not a hotel, get out from this place. That rich man threw them out. Krishna came on the street and told Narada, Narada, you know, wherever I go, I give a boon. So he said, I bless you. You have more money, more real estate, more stock, more bond, more everything. He gave a lavish boon. Then Narada asked, Lord, I do not understand your will. Could you tell me the secret? The secret is, first this woman, when her cow dies, she will fully depend on me. So I shall look after her. And this rich man, I gave him more and more wealth, so his mind will be scattered and his stock market will go down, he will get heart attack and all those things. He said, that is the reason I pushed this man out, giving more money. That is a beautiful story. I can tell many stories about free will and God's will. Ashtavakra Rishi, he was born as a deformed child. So he was thinking, why am I deformed? So he meditated on Brahma, the creator. Brahma appeared, Lord, what is the reason that I am deformed? Please straighten my body. Oh, I cannot do that. It is your karma. Oh, then I don't need you. You get out from this place. Then he meditated on Vishnu. Vishnu came and he asked the same question, Lord, make my body straight. Ashtavakramani, 8 bends of his body. Very deformed. People would just smile at him, laugh at him. Vishnu says, no, I cannot do that. It is your karma. Oh, then you can leave. I do not need you. Then he prayed to Shiva. Shiva also came and he got the same answer from Shiva. Then he said, well, no gods can help me, then I can help myself. He became a non-dualist, Advaita Vedanta. Perhaps you can read his Ashtavakra Samhita, full of non-dual Brahman. I am Brahman. But only the knowledge of Brahman can destroy my karma. Krishna mentioned in the Gita, Ganagni sarva karmani bhasmashat kurute Arjuna. This knowledge of Brahman, Jnana, can destroy all karma. Beautiful story, colorful story. Sometimes I think, the thing which will happen. We cannot change. God's will. We'll have to accept. There is another story. Janameja, the great-grandson of Arjuna, blamed sage Vyasa that you were responsible for this Mahabharata war and the devastation, this Holocaust. Easily you could stop the war. Vyasa says, is that so? No way. Let me tell you, the thing which will happen will happen. Let me tell you, as you are a king, don't go for hunting during rainy season. If you go, if you are lost in the forest, don't take any shelter in the house of a young woman. And if you do, don't marry her. And if you marry her, don't make her the main queen. And if you want to make a main queen, don't engage any young priest. So what happened? He forgot. He went for hunting with his entourage. And he chased a deer and lost with his company. And then he was hungry and thirsty. Then he found a cottage. There's a light in the cottage in the evening. He went there, found a young woman. She said that my father is gone to the town. I am alone. Then he says, I am the king. Then he married her, Gandharva Vivaho. And then he brought her to her kingdom. And in the palace, she wanted to be main queen. So the main priest was not there, Dhamma. So his son officiated. And he was looking at her. And he said, look, this priest is looking at me in a bad way. Then King Janavijaya took the sword, was about to kill that priest. Meanwhile, Vyasa appeared before him and said, look, you are going to kill a Brahmin. Don't you remember I gave you all these alternatives and you did not listen to me? Just see, the thing is going to happen, that will happen. I could not stop that Mahabharata war. God's will. Who can understand God's will? Swamiji told Swami Turiyananda in New York, it was in 1900, brother, Miss Minnie Cook, not Cook, Minnie, Minibook. Swamiji's disciple wanted to give 160 acres of land in California to build a ashram. That is called Shanti Ashram. Swamiji says, brother, you go. It is mother's will that you should start the ashrama there. Turiyananda said, don't say it is mother's will, it is perhaps your will. You are asking me to go. Did mother ask you? Can anybody hear mother's voice? Swamiji said, brother, yes, one can hear mother's voice, but one needs very fine nerve. It is mother's will. Swamiji was a Jivan Mukta. He understood, he realized what is God's will. There is a Taoist Chinese story. Perhaps many of you know that story, maybe. A Chinese farmer had a horse and the horse was lost. And the villagers came and sympathized. Ish, your horse is lost, is gone. Maybe you are very miserable, maybe. Then next day that horse brought another 2-3 wild horses with him, and he got 4 horses. The villagers came and said, my goodness, you are so lucky, you have 4 horses. Maybe. Then what happened? His son was trying to ride one of the wild horses and fell down and broke his leg. Again the villagers came and sympathized, and we are sorry that your son's leg broke. Maybe. Then next day, the king was getting all the young people of the village to join the army. And they are forcing all the young boys of the town on the village. But this boy who broke his leg, he could not go. So he was exempted. So the villagers came and said that you are so lucky that your son has not to go to the war. Maybe. This is God's will. That's a beautiful story. Thank you very much. Tameva mata cha pita tumeva, tameva bandhusya sakha tameva, tameva vidya drabinam tameva, tameva sarvam mama deva deva. O Lord, thou art my mother, thou art my father, thou art my friend, thou art my companion, thou art my wealth, thou art my learning, thou art my all in all, O Lord. Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.